No man's knowledge here can go beyond his experience. The only defense against the world is a thorough knowledge of it. New opinions are always suspected, and usually opposed, without any other reason but because they are not already common. The end of law is not to abolish or restrain, but to preserve and enlarge freedom. Reading furnishes the mind only with materials of knowledge. It is thinking that makes what we read ours. The dread of evil is a much more forcible principle of human actions than the prospect of good. All mankind, being all equal and independent, no one ought to harm another in his life, health, liberty or possessions. The state of nature has a law of nature to govern it, which obliges everyone, and reason, which is that law, teaches all mankind, who will but consult it, that being all equal and independent, no one ought to harm another in his life, health, liberty, or possessions. The improvement of understanding is for two ends. First, our own increase of knowledge. Secondly, to enable us to deliver that knowledge to others. The actions of men are the best interpreters of their thoughts. The legislative cannot transfer the power of making laws to any other hands. For it being but a delegated power from the people, they who have it cannot pass it over to others. The power of the legislative, being derived from the people by a positive voluntary grant and institution, can be no other than what that positive grant conveyed. We are like chameleons, we take our hue and the color of our moral character from those who are around us. A sound mind in a sound body is a short, but full description of a happy state in this world. The only fence against the world is a thorough knowledge of it. Fortitude is the guard and support of the other virtues. I have always thought the actions of men the best interpreters of their thoughts. New opinions are always suspected, and usually opposed, without any other reason but because they are not already common. Freedom of men under government is to have a standing rule to live by, common to every one of that society, and made by the legislative power erected in it. Revolt is the right of the people. The end of law is not to abolish or restrain, but to preserve and enlarge freedom. The reason why men enter into society is the preservation of their property. In transgressing the law of nature, the offender declares himself to live by another rule than that of reason and common equity. Whenever the legislators endeavor to take away and destroy the property of the people, or to reduce them to slavery under arbitrary power, they put themselves into a state of war with the people. Where there is no property, there is no injustice. The labor of his body and the work of his hands, we may say, are properly his. The great and chief end, therefore, of men's uniting into commonwealths, and putting themselves under government, is the preservation of their property. The first and fundamental positive law of all commonwealths is the establishing of the legislative power. Government has no other end but the preservation of property. Men being by nature all free, equal, and independent, no one can be put out of this estate and subjected to the political power of another without his own consent.